Hey y'all, so this is episodes 5 and 6, titled Tom and the Playbook. So um we start off with episode 5, with 11 days prior, where John, asks his team for them to fake their deaths and get new identities. And apparently this isn't the first time that they've done this. Um and he tells them the reason for that is because they're going after someone dangerous. Um, he says that they will keep it simple and make the explosion look like a gas leak. And they will have the intern, whose name is Kyle. I forgot they had mentioned that his name was Kyle, and they made fun of it in like episode 1 or whatever. But yeah, his name is Kyle, so I'll be using that name from now on because I was like, I did not like the fact of calling him Kyle or the intern all the time, but anyway, they will have Kyle essentially be out of the loop and force him to go get, whatever, like go on an errand to quote unquote make him look innocent. Um, and after that, whole scene, but before everything had gone down, Ben tells John that they should kill Kyle because he could be working for Callie, which, ends up being true. Um, In the present, John is calling all the numbers he got from the data from Miles' drive, but it isn't having much luck. Um, John then or Ham tells John that Interverse's donations are all public, but the problem is they all go to 141 people in politics of all different parties. So John is like, well, we need more people. Ben's saying no, because they need to stick to the plan, even though everything hasn't been going right with said plan. So John calls another one of his team members, leaves a message, then destroys the phone. Um, we then see Ben, going to the bathroom and tending to a wound he has on his right side. How he got that, we don't necessarily know, but um, there it is. Well, at least we don't know at that point. We will find out about it later, but at that point we don't. So Maddie then goes to John's ex-wife Olivia's house, pretends to sell candy or cookies or something that her daughter is trying to sell for some school function. I didn't catch what it was, but anyway, so um, Olivia's like, okay, I'll go get my checkbook, and goes inside to go get it. Um, Maddie then decides to go inside the house as well and feels like she needs to use the bathroom. Um, we get a little scene here after this where we're seeing some unknown man, um, and he's listed as what was he listed as? He was listed as some dignified man or something like that, but um I'm thinking it's an older Crowley based off of everything that happened in both this episode and the next one. Um, but yeah, so he's there, asking some other random man that we don't know the name of, um, what Elliot Gow had said, like what was the last thing he had said before he was killed. We don't hear that particular part, but this is just a sort of setup for basically everything that happens in episode 6. Um, Back at Olivia's house, Maddie's in the bathroom and realizes that the bottle of wine that she noticed on the counter in Olivia's house is the same sort of wine that she saw on the manifest of everything that was at the explosion. Um, so um, we then get another little flashback um, where we see John and his team get ready for staging their fake deaths. Um, After Ben tends to his wound, he goes back to everyone else. But as he does that, we see two men with guns get out of their car. And before they make it into like storm the place, Ham says tracking down the donations to individual companies will not work because they're more than likely dead ends because they're either a shell company or multiple shell companies. So instead, he looks at individual people's donations, and they all went to an American or a company called American SOS Committee, and that company only donated to one politician on a regular basis, and it's Senator Evers. Um, Even though she isn't running yet, based on how many donations she has received and how much the money was in each donation, it looks like she will. And then just then, flashbangs get thrown in by the two people that we saw just a few seconds ago, and so they end up running. Ham ends up getting shot, and then so you know John creates a distraction. Ben calls one of the shooters and wounds the other, and then they end up leaving. So John's wondering, after they are escape, what in the world did he miss? So Ben is like, well, the thing he missed was the fact that Miles sold them out. Um, and so I was thinking, you can't necessarily discount Haley because remember when he was about to let her go, he had given her phone back, and then she ends up seeing something on her phone, and I assume it was a text message, but it could have been anything. Um, but I assume it was a text message that she saw, and she changes her mind about leaving. So something made her stay. Um, and personally, I think that it's I think well, I still think that Haley is sort of giving information to somebody. Who that is, I don't know. And how she's getting that information to that person, I'm not sure because like her phone was taken, so it's not like she's giving the information 24/7. I mean, she's finding it some way, but I'm not entirely sure how. Um, Anyway, so Maddie then goes to Raj and says that Kara wanted the intern the female intern, she had bought a wine fridge, or not the female intern, but the female coworker of John. She bought a wine fridge 2 months before she died and spent basically a small fortune on wine shortly before she died to fill it. When the explosion happened, there was no wine in the fridge. So Maddie was wondering why do all this spending of money on a wine fridge and then spending a sizable amount on wine to fill said wine fridge and then end up it doesn't make any sense because it's like you drink all that wine all that quickly. I mean, unless you're a raging alcoholic and all that and can function with being drunk that much all that for that long, you're not gonna be able to essentially um drink all that in a short period of time. So she's wondering like how in the world did um, that get empty so quickly. Um, well, the only thing she can think of is that she Kara knew about something happening. Um, Rosh says, "Well, we got DNA matches, the DNA that you told us to run, and it matches all three of the Johnson employees." So Maddie, a few seconds later, Maddie gets told that Kara got a phone call from a burner phone and requests Kara's phone be tracked. Um, the next thing we see is, everyone, Ben, Ham, Haley, and John all in the cabin. Ben is patching Ham up while John calls numbers. Um, after Ben sends Haley off to get ice, she and John talk, where John basically says, well, my dad might be a manipulative a-hole, but he's basically, I think he's right here where someone, either someone is a leak, or Miles really did turn. Um, so Haley's like, well, can you at the very least give me some form of like trust, whether or something, or maybe that was like an earlier scene, um, but Haley eventually leaves to go get the ice that Ben requested. And as she goes to do that, Ben called another number to which it starts ringing nearby. He realizes it's one of the phones that is with Ben and Ham, and realizes it's Ben's phone. Um, and it was Ben who last talked to Miles. Um, Ben says, "Well, I didn't make Miles jump." Um, and so John is like, "Look, tell me what the fuck happened," essentially. Um, and he begs John to believe him, but John says, "Well, f you, because I don't believe what you say. Because you're not telling me anything. You're lying to me again." So while that's going on, Haley's coming back with the ice, and she passes who I assume is the manager and or the owner of the rental cabins. And when she had passed by him before, he was alive, but when she passes by him again to go back to the cabin, he's dead. So she's like, "Look, we need to get the hell out of here." Um, and leave. We don't have time for this. So as they're making their way, into the woods and all that, they're being shot at, and they eventually lose two people chasing them. Um, Maddie ends up getting a location, not an exact location, but a location of Kara's phone, where it's in a 2 block area of downtown. Um, John, Ben, Ham, and Haley make it to a barn, and Ben tells John he tried to warn Miles about how things went sideways with Kyle. Um, and we see sort of in a flashback that the day of the explosion, they had sent Kyle on a lunch run before, and when he leaves, they leave. Ben had followed Kyle once he came out of the building, and is about to kill him when Kyle gets the jump on him, quite literally too. um, and Kyle ends up stabbing Ben right in the right side that we saw him try to, tend to earlier in the episode. Um, so as Ben is trying to get help, um, you know, Kyle takes Ben's gun, um, and calls this sort of mystery person who says that, I've been burned and they've tried to kill me. The guy on the other phone states, well, you know what to do then. Ben then tells John that he isn't some lucky plant that, like Kyle isn't some lucky plant. He's a pro. So John keeps, insisting, what is it? Why is it that you never told me that my team was actually dead? Because I've been thinking this whole time that they faked their deaths. And eventually, Ben says that if he had told, um, actually no, uh, Ben keeps making excuses as to why he didn't say anything, and then eventually he says, "Well, your whole team is dead." Um, that's what happened. I kind of mixed it up there, but um, Ben, tells John that he knows Miles turned because he had to tell John he had no choice. Um, and then, Hamden sees they're still being followed, and so John realizes that it's actually a bottle of whiskey. It has a tag on it, and I just thought, just now that maybe Haley's the one who put the tag on there because um Ben had the whiskey, but I mean, if John is the, or if Ben is the one who's putting this whole plan into motion, why would he put a, a location tracker or a tracker on the alcohol that he's drinking? Why would he do that? If his whole goal is to take down Crowley, why would he broadcast his location? That makes no sense. So the only thing that and Ham isn't going to do it because he needs them to stay alive. Because so far he seems rather cooperative. I'd actually be hard pressed to believe that Ham was the one who put the thing up there because he got shot. So why would he, you know, want to end up getting shot because he wouldn't want to get shot. I mean, he if he was really truly, part of the whole like Crowley thing, he wouldn't have tried to. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense that Ham did it. So I'm thinking Haley's the one who put the tracker on it. Um, how she got it, I'm not sure because I'm like, I mean, maybe she already had it, and that's, I mean, and she put it on there, and then somehow got a message to Crowley or something. I don't know, but anyways, once downtown, Maddie has, I guess, her assistant Anna call Kara's phone, or some agent underneath her call Kara's phone, and it starts to faintly ring nearby. So Maddie eventually ends up opening the elevator door where like this horrible stenches, and she finds their decomposing bodies. In the flashback, we see Kyle kill the team with Ben's gun and pushes them down the elevator shaft. Um, so after hotwiring the car, they wonder what to do now. And so John's like, well, we need to go talk to Senator Evers. So this leads into episode 6, and it starts off in Central America in 1983. And I think that is, yeah, that was 2 years after he had faked his own death himself. Um, and he's with this other man who is said to be a younger Crowley. And that's where I think the older man that we saw in that one scene that was asking about Gal, I'm thinking he's the older Crowley. Um, so they're standing over a dead body of a local, and I mean, they're sort of enacting the plan of trying to put somebody in a, a like position of power, essentially like the presidential um, seats in whatever Central American country that they're in. Um, and Ben and the guy is scolding Ben for the guy overdosing on illegal drugs, and Ben's like, "Well, I tell them not to use it, but they don't listen." So, and they're wondering what to do with another person who's there who's still alive. Next thing we see is a new story of Senator Evers backing a bill um, to that will allow people to um, know all the data that a person has, and the electronics and essentially data that they um, put out into the world, and all that, and it's trying to get passed in the Senate, but it's having a little trouble. So in the present, um, they everyone is trying to enact this plan of getting into of speaking with the senator, and essentially John thinks that he should do Ben's part because of the fact that he doesn't believe Ben anymore. So Senator Evers comes out of whatever building she's in and gets into the limo that Ben and or John and Ham are in. John um, says, "Well, um, we can prove that you have millions of legal money funneled into your campaign." He tells her all he wants is the man pulling the strings. She says, "Well, no, because um, what John has, is nothing compared to what the people who are um, uh, using her have on her." Um, And if that information ends up getting out, anyone who has her last name, whether related to her or not, will want to change the last name. All this compromising information is in a metal briefcase, but that metal briefcase is also in a safety deposit box of sorts. Um, and so John then asks if he can get it back for her. Will she talk? She ends up saying yes, but she doesn't think it can be done. Um, she doesn't necessarily know the number of the box, or know where the box is, but she does know the number of the box that it was put into, like the briefcase was put into. Um, the box in and of itself is in a storage facility used by the uh, rich people to be able to um, keep illegal things in there. So basically, it's used by people who are not on the up and up. Um, so uh, they then start brainstorming how to get the box back. Ben isn't happy because Senator Evers' bodyguard will be in on the heist and all that. And basically, Ben will be cut out. Um, Turns out Haley will be with him, trying to help get the box out. Um, John states that they have to stick to the specific route while in the facility because if they have like a sensor uh, that lights up a path for them to take, and if they stray from that path, um, alarms will um, alarms will go off. Um, John wants to use $20 million of the 26 million that Haley stole. Um, she sort of thinks it's kind of ironic that um, all she has is word that everything has happened so far isn't part of some scheme for him to take all of her money, but she ends up doing it anyway. We see a little snippet of a podcaster that we've been seeing this whole season, Morgan Shaw, make a podcast episode about the fact that he doesn't really think Ham really died because um, someone told him to get in touch with the uh, um, funeral home that he went to, like his body supposedly went to, and it turns out he was quote unquote uh, he accidentally was cremated. The body was accidentally cremated and all that. So he doesn't think Ham really died. Um, because like the whole cremation thing happened before the DNA test could be performed. And he also thinks, Ham stumbled onto something big, which, yeah, I kind of knew, but he's sort of spilling this stuff to his followers and all that. Anybody who will listen, essentially. Um, So we then see the guy who I assume is Crowley give like two people some sort of job, and I think this is the the fact of them trying to find. Well, I think this is something else later on in the episode. But um, after Haley had sent the money, um, she notices a chat going on, and I think some sort of game where that John is using, um, and he's asking the same thing over and over again, which is, "Are you there?" So she's talking to Ben about this, wondering what's going on because he's talking to some dead friend. Um, and so Ben is saying, well, this is something that John does, that John calls going down the hole. So, after everything is all said and done, John can go get the help that he needs. We then see Kyle and his girlfriend go to a rally. And after the rally, he asks Eliza to help her with, some thing to get his life back on track. Um, and so she then tries to get him, like, say, hey, I don't want to, can you just stay? Can you just stay? Can you just stay? And so he does. Um, so the next day, the end, Haley, John, and the bodyguard for Evers ends up going out and doing the job, the heist and all that. And they Haley's job is to continuously use an infrared pen to trigger the alarm. So that way they can have like a reboot of the whole system, which will take about a minute to do. So that way they have the time to switch out the cases and all that. Um, so they managed to do that, but John ended up leaving a key in the box by accident. Haley manages to get the key, and after they all leave, the bodyguard ends up taking the briefcase from John. But it turns out John put the real briefcase in the box that John had already opened, and then goes back to retrieve it. Back at I don't even know what it is. It's like some abandoned building that's under construction or something, or some building under construction. And so John and Haley kissed, and I'm like sitting here thinking you should not be kissing her because I still think something about her is off. Because I still can't dismiss the fact that she essentially flipped a switch in like episode 1 or 2 where he was about to let her go, then all of a sudden, like, because she was clamoring about, I want to go, I want to be set free, and I want to be able to like leave and all that. And she did all that complaining, um and the second that she is about to be let go, she's like, oh no, never mind, I don't want to, I don't want to leave. And it's all because I feel like she saw something on her phone when he gave it back to her. And like I said, I keep saying it, I think it's a text message that she saw. And so I'm just like, I don't, something about that is just eating at me. And I, I can't, I can't quite tell or make up my mind about whether or not she um, is actually in on everything or she's just an unwitting partner. Um, at some points, I think she's like she's under duress, and then at other points, I think she's completely in on it, and she's not under duress. And right now, I don't know, I'm maybe leaning more towards she's in on it, like, and she's not under duress. But I like I said, I keep flip flopping. But either way, I think she's giving Crowley information. Um, I think there's actually a leak, and she's the leak because I don't know. Or maybe she's giving information to Kyle, and Kyle's giving it back to Crowley or something. I don't know. But anyway, so I'm just like, please don't kiss her. Please don't. So Senator Evers ends up calling John about the briefcase, and he's like, "Well, you're gonna meet me at 3 p.m. at this address that I text you." um, Evers then makes an unscheduled stop because her uh, what you call it, the um, campaign team wants her to make some speech. John's like, no, don't do that. You're gonna end up. That's not a good idea because I mean anything could happen. But someone who I assume is a sniper nearby shoots her in the head. Kyle and Eliza are there too, or at least Eliza's nearby, and she's holding a gun pointed at the senator, but I don't necessarily think that she actually shot her. I think, I think she shot towards the senator, but um, it was actually the sniper, or maybe she did shoot the senator, and then this sniper ends up shooting the bodyguard afterwards. Anyway, so either way, there's a news story cover that covers Evers getting shot and states that an immediate vote will be held for the bill that she was backing. So John's realizing that Crowley had her killed, and not because he wanted someone to control in the White House as the president. It was to have the bill passed and used her assassination to pass it. After everything's said and done, Kyle and Liza are in a car, and while he's talking to her, his accent changes to what the captions say, a quote unquote European accent. Uh, and he actually used her um, as a patsy, and he ends up killing her. So another news report shows that the shooter was identified as Eliza, who was mentally unwell. Um, Kyle dumps her body under an underpass, and we see that there's a tattoo on her right shoulder blade with both their names in two hearts. Um, the last thing we see is John getting a message off his game app that states that he had to make it look real. So he's assuming that it was from um, it was from Miles. And honestly, I mean, I don't even know what to believe. I mean, that could be true. I mean, there's so many things that, we think is true and then turns out not to be true, which actually turns out to be the truth about it. Like the first thing that was like we thought was actually really the truth, and it's like, so I mean, I think maybe someone is using that account that Miles had and is pretending to be Miles to make him think that Miles faked his death to make it look to quote unquote make it look real. And perhaps it's Haley who, I mean, maybe not Haley herself, but maybe she, told Crowley, we can exploit this and make him think that, Miles is still alive and all that stuff. And perhaps that Miles was the one um, who turns and there isn't a leak within the four of them, because that's the only thing that kind of makes sense as to, because I like I said, I there's something about her specifically, just I don't necessarily trust. I think something's off with her. um and more each episode I'm starting to think that she's just in on it, and maybe she's the child, and this is going to be a lot of left field because, and I'm just thinking this kind of spitballing here, and this is kind of off the top of my head, but maybe she's the child of Crowley, and he helped recruit her to get revenge on Ben, and I don't know, but yeah, something about her just seems off with this whole thing. So, but that's basically episodes 5 and 6. Um, Next week is, excuse me, Thanksgiving week here in the U.S. If anybody who's watching outside the U.S., um, I will have Thursday and Friday off. But and I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I don't have any plans to go be with family, but so we'll see if I'm up to finishing the last two episodes and putting out the last video on Sunday. But if not, it might be delayed until the following week. But I don't foresee myself have not making the video, but just in case, it might be the following week. Um, Anyone who's in the US and is who is going to celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope you have a lovely holiday. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.